Elon Musk tells the Brazilian Supreme Court to go f themselves. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning. That's all. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking photo, talking video. Today is a technology day. We're going to be talking about Elon Musk and SpaceX, Starlink, as well as X, and the whole craziness that's going on over there in Brazil. And while one of the Supreme Court justices in Brazil made a crazy ruling, there are more Supreme Court justices that are following in suit. So we're going to get into that today. There is a dissenting one that we want to talk about. I want to get into it and give you some backstory of what has been going on, as well as what is now the latest in the news. There's a lot of stuff that has been showing up in the news feed just today, this morning alone. And I want to bring it to your attention because I find it very interesting, and I'm sure you guys do too. If not, you wouldn't be watching this video. Before we jump into it, I just want to say that if you enjoy the content, consider throwing it a thumbs up. That would be great. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not. If you are, I appreciate you. Click this little button over here, this notification button, so when I go live, when a new video comes out, you'll be notified of it immediately. Friday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be here, or be square. Also, if you just want to download some of my ebooks, they are free just for you being here. Go to JCristina.com/books. And if you want more Starlink content, I have about 330, I think, right around that, just for you. I'll put a link right here. Don't click on it yet. When you're done watching this video, click on that. You'll see 300 plus videos I've put together in the last 44 months on how-tos, what to do, what not to do, what to buy, what not to buy, how to do things, and of course the why behind it all. And if you just want to say thank you for all of my hard work, I'll put a thank you button. You can click on that, give $1 or $2 if you like. If not, that's perfectly fine. Consider becoming a member of the channel. That would be even better. So we're going to jump right into this article. I want to hear from you. I'll give you my commentary over it, but I want to know what you think down below. And if you're shy, just put an emoji down there, just so I know that you're here. Put a gavel, put a spaceship, put a rocket, put an alien, put a poop emoji, something, just so I know that you watched the video. That would be very helpful. So the article starts out by saying a panel of 5 Brazilian Supreme Court justices voted Monday to uphold a decision requiring the National Telecommunications Agency, or ANTEL, to limit access to X, this service formerly known as Twitter. Stop saying that. Stop already. We know that it was formerly known as Twitter. X is X now, all right? If you don't know, you've been underneath a rock and you're probably not watching this video, all right? Man, they keep on doing it. Justice Alexandra de Moraes issued a ban on Friday in response to X's owner Elon Musk's refusal to comply with the court's order to block certain accounts and to identify a legal representative in the country. Potter 360 and The Globe reported that 3 justices fully supported de Moraes' ruling, while a 4th noted reservations about a fine for people who circumvented the ban with a VPN, saying only people who post criminal messages like those expressing Nazism or fascism should be fined. As far as the ban's effect, competing platforms have reported large numbers of new accounts made by Brazilian users. News organization Potter 360 noted that its X account will now be managed exclusively from Portugal to respect the judge's decisions. Okay, so you just move it out of the country and you just keep doing what you want to do as a news magazine. Okay, it makes sense, right? Meanwhile, Starlink has told Brazilian's telecom regulator, ANTEL, or the National Telecommunications Agency, that it will not comply with the ban until the court unfreezes its assets. So far, X is reportedly still accessible via the service. The New York Times reported that de Moraes has blocked Starlink from making Brazilian transactions while the court seeks to collect $3 million in unpaid fines by X. Potter 360 reported that the court order gave internet providers as well as app stores 5 days to take measures to block access to X in the country, establishing a deadline of Wednesday, September 4th. Speaking about what the court is asking of other internet providers, they are asking, for example, Apple as well as Google to take X out of their Play Store, to take out VPNs out of their Play Store. So this way you cannot get a VPN in Brazil, you cannot get, which will circumvent their nonsense, and you can't get X, their app, in Brazil either. And they're telling Apple as well as Google that they have 5 days to comply. Well, they've walked that back as of this morning, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. Maurice has set a daily fine of $8,900 for anyone using a virtual private network or a VPN to access X, and initially ordered Apple and Google to remove VPNs from their stores in Brazil, but a court statement has said that the judge has since suspended this aspect of the order to avoid disrupting other companies. Basically saying, listen, Google, listen, Apple, you don't have to do that. We would like for you to do it, but this isn't going to be mandated, all right? We don't want to disrupt you in any way. There's around 250,000, 250,000 Starlink customers in Brazil. The service has proven popular in rural areas and among indigenous tribes in the Amazon. Starlink's pledge to provide free internet access to its Brazilian customers while its accounts in the country remain blocked and their assets frozen. So Elon said, hey, free for the entirety of Brazil until we get this worked out. No problem. We're not going to take your money. We're just going to give it to you for free. Interesting, right? Interesting. If Starlink maintains its stance on X, Brazil could revoke the internet service license. If it continues to operate thereafter, officials could seize equipment from 23 ground stations. The gear helps Starlink improve quality of the satellite connections. Now, that's interesting, right? They're going to seize 23 ground stations, all of the equipment, if they don't comply. Interesting. Now, if you remember, I've talked to you guys about this in the past. I said that ground stations are going to go the way of the dinosaur, the way of the dodo bird. They're not going to be as much so needed. Why do I say that? Basically, what I was speculating is that as SpaceX forms this mesh network, right now 50% of their Starlink satellites are currently in this mesh network. Basically 50% of all of the Starlink satellites, so let's call it about 3,000, 3,100, somewhere around there, actually have onboard lasers. Those are communication lasers. Those communication lasers help form a mesh network around the entire planet, meaning that each one of those satellites could communicate with each other at the speed of light in a vacuum. So even faster than light traveling through fiber optics on Earth. So extremely fast. So what does this mean? My speculation here is they can do away with the ground stations and basically put the ground stations where the pops are, the point of presence. How would that work? What this means is if I'm here in Florida and I'm using currently a ground station that is close to me and then a pop that's in Georgia, instead of using the ground station that's close to me, right, and using the pop, the data would go from my dish up to a satellite, down to the ground station, through fiber optics on the ground to Georgia. Then it would do the request, get the information back from the pop to the ground station, back to the satellite, and then back down to me. If we cut out that ground station near me, how would that work? That means that that ground station would be like a major ground station at that pop in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, my request would go from my dish up to a satellite overhead, and then that satellite would bounce that request to a satellite overhead of Atlanta, Georgia. Think about that. In a split second, in a millisecond, right? At the speed of light in a vacuum. And then it would send that down to the ground station, major ground station at Atlanta, Georgia. Right? Right next door to each other. So what that means is you don't need that pop right next to me. And you're speeding up service because now you're taking one hop out of the loop completely. Because remember, that ground station will be where the pop is, right next door in the same location. So it's not going to need to go anywhere. You're not going to have to traverse the ground through fiber optics to get from point A to point B. You cut that point completely out. So how would this pertain to Brazil? Well, if Brazil took out all 23 of those ground stations, they could use a ground station on the west side of Africa. They could use a ground station out of an island in the Bahamas or in Puerto Rico or someplace like that without any problem. Think about it. Because once again, the requests from that 250,000 people that are in Brazil that use SpaceX Starlink will go from their dish up to a satellite overhead. And then instead of to one of the 23 ground stations in Brazil, no, it would just fire it off to Africa or to Puerto Rico or to wherever at the speed of light, and it will send it back down to a ground station right next to a pop that's currently available. Think about it. You really don't need those ground stations anymore. Now, I could be wrong. I don't work for SpaceX Starlink, but I think that is how it can go down. And if that is the case, not only are you going to be able to reduce the number of these ground stations all over the world, but you're also going to speed up your connectivity. It is going to simply go faster because you're cutting out hops. You're cutting out these destinations that really don't need to be on your hop list. So instead of having, let's say, 10 hops to the pop, maybe it's 9 hops to the pop. You follow me? You know, I look at this stuff and it makes me think. And maybe it does the same for you. You know, I feel like the winds of change can be felt by the people of the world. And Elon Musk, SpaceX Starlink, as well as X, have provided a voice to people without a voice, have provided a freedom of communication that never had it before. You know, there's an old saying out there that says something like, keep your people religious and keep them dumb, and you always keep them under your thumb. Very, very powerful statement and very, very true. And I feel like the people of the world are pulling themselves out from underneath the thumb of tyranny and dictatorship. And it's all thanks to Elon Musk, SpaceX Starlink, as well as X. Do you agree?